Hi, this is Drew Dinsick of NBC Sports Edge, and it is time for the most hotly contested division in all of football, the AFC West. This is going to be a dogfight. You have four bona fide teams, four bona fide quarterbacks here, including everyone's number one, I would believe, in Pat Mahomes, and a division that is absolutely wide open with talent at every level, both sides of the ball. Kansas City Chiefs right now lead the market in the AFC West at plus 175. The Chargers are number two right now at plus 225. Denver Broncos plus 250. And the Raiders round out the West at plus 650. Let's start with the Raiders just because they're at the bottom, Warren. You can't, something has to give. There's just too many good teams in this division. And the Raiders are sort of the odd team out as they take on a campaign with a new coach in Josh McDaniels, a quarterback in Derek Carr, who put up a solid who put up a solid statistical season last year, especially in the eyes of what was a very challenging year, considering all of the externalities going on with that franchise. Are you where I'm at? Where it's like, if this team was in, say, the AFC South or the NFC, even, you would be making a case for them as a dark horse. But because of the division that they are in, they have to be a pass.
Yeah, I tend to agree completely there because this isn't a horrible football team. And I'm excited to see what the new coaching does for their prospects this season. But when I look at, just some of the things I know are going to regress from last season, this team went 4-0 in overtime games. They had more overtime wins than any team in NFL history. Obviously, that's not happening again. They went 5-1 in games decided by a field goal or less, 7-2 in one-score games, ranked 7th best in fumble luck, 8th best in field goal luck. They trailed in 15 games last season. The fourth most of any team in the NFL. No team in the last 5 years has trailed in at least 15 games and still made the postseason. So this was a team that was just winning these close games in really high leverage situations. They had the right play calls, or they made the right plays, and they were able to win some of those games. I just think some of these things are going to regress. And to me, it starts up front. I know in the Hall of Fame game, this team looked like it could run through everybody. I don't really care about that. The problem is I think this offensive line takes a slight step back. This team used to have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. We know that no quarterback performs better when they're under duress or under pressure. I think Derek Carr will be under pressure more frequently this year than he was in the past. And so they're going to have to scheme around that offensively. The other thing, though, Drew, to me is who is going to help? We talk about Derek Carr's receiving weapons, and I know fantasy guys love it. I know Davante Adams there. It's like, who are you going to guard? I personally think they should be using a lot more 12 personnel to help out that offensive line with an extra tight end out on the field. And you get Waller running routes and Hunter Renfrow and Davante Adams. I don't know who you're guarding. You got to back out of the backfield as well. But here's the issue. I don't think they're going to have that support from the ground game. I think this running game is going to be somewhat problematic. They faced above easier than average schedules for the last several years, and this run game has always been one of the worst in the NFL. I think this year it's going to be even more challenging because they're going to face one of the most difficult schedules of opposing run defenses, and that's just going to mean that all the pressure falls on a Derek Carr to really make good on the fact that he convinced Davante Adams to come over there. I still think this is a fine team. I just don't know that their upside is making the playoffs and going on a run this upcoming season just because of the schedule that they're going to face this year.
Yeah, tough. They find themselves in a tough spot. And I think there are positives you can definitely expect from McDaniels, particularly early in the season. But the way he's kind of grinding these guys and sort of the attitude that's prevailing, not just in camp, but in that first preseason game, a little concerning in terms of burning these guys out. But it's going to be a long season. This is a competitive division, and ultimately, I just don't see them finding enough wins in division to be a factor. So we move up the board to the Denver Broncos, who are somewhat divisive among the Sharp community, if I'm being honest. I have heard very respected players make strong cases for and against this team. They sit at 10.5 wins, which is huge number. I mean, that's a big leap in terms of performance from this team that has a new coach and a new quarterback. And most of the commentary has split on Russell Wilson still has his fastball versus Russell Wilson has been solved. And you know that he's in a division that has been playing against Pat Mahomes, and the two high safeties are now a very common element across the AFC. Is this reason to be skeptical of Russell Wilson, or is this such a massive upgrade over what they had last year that people are overlooking the Broncos?
Yeah, I think both are very valid points. I don't know that I think anybody is actually overlooking them, because I think just the upside of this team is so high, and that's because of that change in quarterback, as you mentioned. It's really hard to measure, so I did it graphically. I tweeted out a graphic that showed, Drew Lock's deep ball versus Russell Wilson's deep ball, and it's like worst in the NFL to like third best in the NFL. And this is out of like 45 quarterbacks. It's just not even close how much more efficient Russell Wilson will be as a quarterback, how much more he's seen and experienced and can do than what the quarterback play has been for the last couple of years. Also take into consideration is such a conservative, old-timey coaching staff that has been with the Denver Broncos now is going to get a massive facelift this upcoming season. One particular bet that I liked in this division and for this team specifically was Cortland Sutton over 900.5 receiving yards. It's the only bet on an over for a player prop that I've made this season. It's now up to 925. I still like it at 925. The reason why is I'm looking back at Russell Wilson for 2 straight years. He has played with Pete Carroll calling, the shots in Seattle and trying to temper down this passing attack. And even then, both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in both 2020 and 2021 went over this number. So you've got 4 total seasons, 2 seasons. Both players went over this number. Now you've lost Tim Patrick stealing some of those targets. Jerry Jeudy a little bit more underneath. I just think Cortland Sutton here is going to get there, especially when you consider, this isn't quite as bad as Allen Robinson, Drew, but here's the quarterbacks who have thrown passes to Cortland Sutton. 83 targets from Case Keenum, 78 targets from Teddy Bridgewater, 61 targets from Drew Lock, 59 targets from Joe Flacco, and 25 targets from Brandon Allen. Now we go Russell Wilson. I just think it's going to make all of these receivers look a lot better this upcoming season. That said, I have not placed any futures bet, whether positive or negative, on the Denver Broncos this year for a lot of the reasons that you've mentioned. It's easy to paint a case why we could see a lot of more success, but it's also reasonable in a very difficult division, especially early on in the season, to expect some growing pains between the quarterback and his receivers and the quarterback and this new offensive coordinator, which he has not worked with in the past, and expect to see some games that maybe they probably should have won that they ended up losing to start the year before they really hit their stride later in the season.
Yeah, well, Cortland Sutton has the physical tools to do a tremendous DK Metcalf impression. So go get some statistics, young man. And I like that look a lot in the prop market. The LA Chargers are a team that I have had a very tough time planting a flag on in terms of this is their year, even though you look across this depth chart and it is a who's who of awesome talent. And there's not really a key weakness in this unit outside of their run defense, and presumably with the full off season to self-evaluate and scheme up ways to do better in the run fits, this Chargers defense is going to be more effective. They've made investments at every key positional group that had weaknesses last season, and now the Chargers presumably are primed to take the division in the AFC by storm. The big questions surrounding this unit in my mind is they have not made the playoffs yet, which means there's still a potential Justin Herbert playoff stinker lurking in round 1 of the playoffs. You worried about that at all? And or is this Chargers team as good as advertised?
I'm worried before they even get to that point, because you're right. I couldn't have said it better myself. This general manager with a quarterback on a rookie deal, we talk about this being like the skeleton key that opens up everything. It obviously does. And he was able to then go and plug holes in that boat, filling him up with the specific player. Oh, we need a run defender. Let's get him. We need an extra corner. Let's get him. Let's get an extra slot corner as well, because we're playing a couple of quarterbacks who are excellent in our division. Let's go ahead and get some guys on the offensive side of the ball too. So this is a team that plugged their holes really well, thanks to Justin Herbert's contract. The only thing I think that derails the Chargers, there's 2 elements that I'm concerned about. Number one is injuries, which this team seems snake bitten. And number two is coaching. And I don't mean from their head coach, who's very aggressive, and I'm fine with that. I mean from their offensive coordinator, and the depth of target and the way that they're using Justin Herbert is just not optimal towards the skill set of your quarterback and what we know wins games in the modern NFL. He made Matthew Stafford like a dink and dunk style quarterback. That's exactly how it was when he was calling shots down in New Orleans at the end of Drew Brees' career. Obviously, Sean Payton was the main head of that program, but he was heavily involved as a quarterback's coach as well. And that's how they were calling that offense, a lot of short passes. So that's not Justin Herbert's strengths. He obviously is fine throwing short, but his upside is some of the deeper down the field stuff. And they need a field stretcher. They need those receivers to be able to get down the field. I think this team's ceiling is as high as any team in the NFL, Drew. I just think that I have concerns about the way that they're going to try to attack opponents on a week in, week out basis. And like you said, could there be a stinker? Well, yes, there could be a stinker. The risk of there being a stinker, in my opinion, is higher when you don't have an optimal philosophy of how you want to attack, how you want to coach your players to maximize their talents, and then how you want to attack defenses, trying to find the easiest path to victory every single given week, so that if you do make a mistake, it's in the third quarter when you're up by 13 points, rather than costing yourself an opportunity to win this game. And that is a definite concern of mine.
They were oh so close. If they just tie the Raiders in week 18 last year, they go to the playoffs. They get, the first opportunity for Justin Herbert to get his feet wet in a playoff setting. Instead, they go home. That was a tough loss for them. And I think if there's any reason to be a little skeptical this year, that's probably it. But it's a weak reason. And I think the overarching narrative gets us to this point where we're talking Kansas City Chiefs. And that is that if you feel like the division is catching up to the Chiefs, in some ways, it's not just because the division has gotten better. It's because the Chiefs have gotten worse. And the Chiefs are going to be without Tyreek Hill. And it is tough to divide up the credit pie proportionally correctly between the Andy Reid offensive scheme, Pat Mahomes' God-given gifts, and what the strengths of his weapons in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce in particular brought to the modern era for the Chiefs' offensive success. Now, when you have someone as talented as Mahomes, when you have a coaching staff as good as Andy Reid, it's entirely reasonable to expect in one offseason that they can hit the ground running with some new weapons. But it's still a question that needs to be asked. And so the Kansas City Chiefs sit here at an over 10.5 win total, which is quite high, juiced minus 115 to the over, but coming down. And wonder, are the Chiefs a little bit overrated by market? And will the growing pains ultimately give us a team that has to backdoor their way into the playoffs?
All very good questions and all very difficult to answer, because I think a little bit higher of Mahomes and Andy Reid than I think the market does. And the reason I'm saying that is, you mentioned at the top of the introduction to this division, like we all assume Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL, but not everybody out there assumes that. I mean, we had Emmanuel Acho going out there saying he's not even a top 5 quarterback in the league right now. And we had a lot of guys after they lost to Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game in overtime, in a game that the Chiefs should have won, mind you, saying that the Patrick Mahomes was not even the best quarterback in his division or the best quarterback in the AFC. And so there are a lot of skeptics. They want this team. I think they bought into the fact that Patrick Mahomes was such a stud, and when he won that Super Bowl in 2019, that we were just going to see him reel off this string of Super Bowls like Tom Brady was doing at the peak of his dynasty. And because Mahomes wasn't doing that, which, by the way, he's been to 3 straight AFC championship game, multiple Super Bowls. Like, are we really serious that we can't find a lot of support for this guy? But the bottom line is, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to be able to have a better start to the season because they know a little bit more of how defenses are going to play them. They're without Tyreek Hill. I don't know how frequently defenses are now going to change the coverage against them, but they've had all offseason to try to figure out how we're going to best attack these defenses, whereas last year it felt like they were making a lot of adjustments on the fly and tweaking things. And when we look back in retrospect, we're like, yeah, the Chiefs offense, they weren't quite as good last year as they've been in the past. But then when you look at some of these numbers, Drew, number one in points scored per drive, number one in percentage of drives that scored points, number one in touchdowns per drive, number one in yards per drive, number one in plays per drive, number one in rate of punts per drive, and number one in rate of 3 and outs per drive. Like, this offense was still insane last season. And so, yeah, you can make a case that no Tyreek Hill and maybe a slower Travis Kelce is going to lower some things in terms of the ceiling for this team. I want to see it happen before I just project it when I know how talented Mahomes is and how good I feel Andy Reid is. My questions are actually more so on the defensive side of the ball here. Mahomes has been getting it done without a top flight defense for a while, and this defense is going to be very green this season. They're going to need key contributions from rookie defensive players here, and I just don't know how quickly it's all going to come together on that side of the football. But I think that this team should be able to run their running backs more as defenses sit back. They just have to get Andy Reid to be willing to lower his pass rate, which he loves to do, and take advantage of these 5.5 yard gains from the ground game and what I think is a pretty good run blocking offensive line. I still think this team has a really high ceiling, but I just don't see value in the futures market at the current number. I know they've been a popular underbet team. I did not jump on that bandwagon, but I may wait until the price is as low as it possibly can get and then just try to fade that slightly. But I have not decided as to whether I'm doing that or not.
Okay. God, a lot to think about. Your points about the Chiefs offense having a full off season now to really solve what had become somewhat of an issue for them is very valid. I haven't really thought about what surprises they're bringing to the table this year, but they'll be there. And I guess the question is, if the Chiefs are ultimately asked to get it done on the road in the playoffs, do we believe this is a team that can do it? You, of course, brought up that Mahomes has been to 2 Super Bowls. He has hosted now 3 straight AFC Championship games. 3 or 4, maybe 4. I think he's hosted 4 straight AFC Championship games. So can he do it on the road is a fair question. But if anyone can, it's fair to count on Mahomes. Man, I'm excited to see that AFC Championship game potentially in Buffalo. That would be something. But fair way to end it. Reasonable way to break down this AFC West, which is going to be so entertaining. We don't have to wait long. We get to see Chiefs Chargers week 2 on Thursday Night Football. We get a primetime game right out of the bat to start to evaluate these guys. So enjoy as we get ready for the start of the NFL season. I hope you took some value from this series of previews for the divisions, and best of luck as you prepare to bet on 2022 NFL.